Hi, I'm Daniel Murphy, and today we have an example of a poor cabling job here. Number one, they should have had a through bolt in it if it's over 10 inches. I'm not sure, that looks like it's around 10 to 12 inches there. Number two, they could have used a small jag. Number three, and most importantly, the cable was set too low. And this is the vast majority of cables are put in improperly just because they're too low. So even with all the other problems, if the cable was higher, it would have had probably enough leverage to hold here. Unfortunately, this is too often an occurrence because climbers either don't know that they think that the cable should be set higher, they think that setting the cable should be set lower into bigger wood, which is what the untrained mind might think, or they just don't have the care or ability to get up high enough in the tree to set the cable. It's a little more work to get up there and set that cable properly high where the leverage is not fighting you. So unfortunately, I've seen far too many trees fail that have been improperly cabled. In almost all situations, the cables is set too low. The industry standard is that a cable should be 2/3 of the height from the crotch or the branch union to the tips. And generally that's in pretty small wood. By the time, you have to get in a huge tree before you're going to get 10-inch wood at 2/3 of the way from the crotch to the tips. This tree certainly wasn't. So 2/3 of the way should be 66% of the way up. I even like to put them in higher, 4/5 of the way or even higher if possible. Most guys don't do that strictly because it's just harder to put a cable in higher. It's just easier to make your swing side to side, set your cable in low, or you put it in where the bucket truck reaches. Personally, I'm very, very concerned about my cables. I take that cabling extremely seriously because it doesn't look like much damage, but it turns out there's a split leaf Japanese maple that just got trashed here. It could have been a house, it could have been a car, it could have been someone's kids out here playing in the yard. So it's very important. I take my cabling very seriously, and the way I do that is primarily to make sure I get my cables in high, and number two, to use a through bolt if there's anything big. In this situation, we can clearly see that the J-lag just pulled right out of the wood. If there was a through bolt and a nut and a washer on the backside, that probably wouldn't have happened. And number three, if I'm using J-lags, make sure the J-lags are installed straight and properly with proper sized bits. What we're going to do, we're going to drop this tree and take a look and see how high those cables were set. I'm going to guess from here that they're not set much more than halfway up. This tree was cabled 5 years ago. The customer told me even if the tree grew a little bit over the last few years, they clearly should have been set higher. I can just tell from the size of the wood. Anytime you're in a tree and you're setting a cable 2/3 of the way from the crotch to the tips, only the biggest, trees 100, 125 feet or bigger are going to have anything close to 10-inch wood at that height. I can't stress enough how important it is to put cables in trees with co-dominant stems that are big trees that have, over valuable property. Cables can take a tree that is otherwise healthy but has this one structural defect which can pose often a huge threat to a property. One simple cable can be good for 10, 15 years or more if it's installed properly. That's the key, to get an arborist out here that's going to install a cable properly. I take my cables very seriously. The way I remedy the situation is I put 2 climbers in the tree, 1 on each side, so I don't need to go low enough to swing from one side to the other. We foot lock, we use the slingshot to set our climbing lines. We know how to get up high into big trees. It's not a big deal. And then put the cable in right. That's what should have been done here. Could have saved a lot of trouble for the customer. Now the whole tree has to come down. It's a sad thing. Well, we can take a look at this crotch here too. Obviously had included bark here. A lot of fungus. This is all old fungus growing in the wood here. There's all punky here. So when you see, especially on the Norway maples, when you see outer signs, it's callus growth and whatever else happened in here, whatever killed this bark years ago, the fungus got to it. Took all its strength away. And there's the failed cable. That was a J-lag that bent and straightened out. Looks like it's not 5/8, looks like it's 1/2 inch. You should put 5/8 inch J-lags here. You can clearly see what he did too. There's a branch union right here. He put it down below the crotch. You got another 4 or 5 feet up there, probably where it should have gone. would have made a big difference in leverage. And number two, the question comes, did he use proper hardware? Apparently he did not. Combination of the small hardware, combination with a low cable. Clearly he used a 1/2-inch J-lag here, which is just inappropriate hardware. He should have gone with a 5/8-inch J-lag, no question about it. I don't even buy the small ones, just buy bigger J-lags, number one. Number two, if you put it 4 or 5 feet up higher, it would have had a little better leverage, probably would have been enough. Number three, any question about it in this situation with such a bad tree like this, probably should just go with a through bolt. The through bolt is not going to pull out like that, not going to bend, not going to whatever. It's a much more secure form of cabling. I certainly would have gone with through bolt on this job. Now let's just see how high he put that cable in there. I'm going to have to get a measurement here. 23.5 to the branch union there on this side. Now, in fairness to him, this was a bigger half, but we can measure the other half too. Measure this out to the branch tips here. Oh, so I'm at 25 here, 26, 27, 28, 29. He wasn't even halfway up on this side. You know, that is funny, isn't it? Because when I looked at it from the ground, I thought he's got to be halfway up there, or a little bit more. He wasn't even close to halfway up. He's 23.5 to the crotch on this side, to the branch union, and he's 29 or 30 to the branch tips over here. That's not even halfway up. What does that tell you? That tells you that the eye's a funny thing. I was looking at it from the ground and thinking, where I could see that the cable was hanging, that's probably halfway to the branch tips, maybe a little bit more. I was wrong, it's a little bit less. There's an optical illusion that happens when you look from the ground. That first 23 feet looks bigger than the second 30 feet. The first half or 2/3 is from the ground looks bigger than what it really is. So again, another reason why if you're eyeballing a tree from the ground, what you think is 2/3 of the way up, due to the optical illusion of how we view trees, probably isn't. You need to go high with these cables. That's the number one lesson for any arborist. Should put your cables in nice and high. I'm 19 feet here, and I'll just walk off the other half. Okay. So, he's 19 feet from the branch union to the J-lag, and he's 29 feet from the J-lag to the tips of the tree. Put the cable in too low. He put the cable in here. Now, he could have easily put the cable in up here somewhere. Another 4 feet, he'd have been 24. He still wouldn't have been halfway to the tip. There's not much you can do after that. I wouldn't want a cable into, 4 or 5 inch wood. At least here, he's got 6, 7 inch wood here. And if it's that much of an issue, use the through bolt. All right, we got to get to the next job. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something today. I certainly did myself.